Well, the British royals have posed for a new formal photograph. Duchess of Cambridge, Kate Middleton, as it always is, because you just can't help but.
The Cambridge lovers' not tiara sits within that complex middle category of royal jewelry that belongs to the reigning monarch, available for loan to senior members of the family for appropriate occasions. Its allocation guided by the monarch's preferences, royal protocol regarding rank and title, and the accumulated weight of unspoken understanding about which pieces carry which associations and should therefore be handled with corresponding sensitivity. When Princess Diana wore the lover's knot through the 1980s and into the 1990s, she transformed it from a beautiful historical piece into something considerably more loaded. She wore it at state banquets and diplomatic receptions and formal palace occasions with a frequency and a grace that burned its image into the public consciousness. Side-by-side photographs of Diana in the tiara became among the most reproduced images of her public life. She wore it even when it gave her headaches, because she understood instinctively that it suited her and that the public had made it hers in a way that went beyond any formal allocation. When Diana returned the tiara to the royal collection following her divorce from Charles in 1996, and when she died the following year in Paris, the lover's knot went back to its vault. For nearly 18 years, it was not seen in public. The palace's handling of Diana's memory in the immediate years following her death had not been its finest hour, and the tiara was part of a broader set of questions about how to manage objects, traditions, and associations so deeply connected to a woman the world mourned so intensely. The institution did not rush to find an answer. It waited. And while it waited, the tiara sat in its case, and the question of who would eventually wear it remained unaddressed. The answer came in 2015 when Catherine, then the Duchess of Cambridge, wore the lover's knot tiara publicly for the first time at the annual diplomatic reception at Buckingham Palace. The response from the public and from royal observers was immediate and deeply emotional. The photographs of Catherine and the tiara brought Diana's image flooding back in a way that no other piece of royal jewelry could have achieved. The visual connection between the two women, both tall, both elegant, both possessed of the particular quality that made every camera reach for them instinctively, wearing the same extraordinary piece in the same setting, moved people in a way that transcended ordinary fashion commentary. It was understood immediately as something more than a style choice. It was an act of remembrance. It was Catherine saying, in the language of symbols that the royal family has always spoken more fluently than the language of direct statement, that Diana was not forgotten, and that the title they had both held carried a continuous thread of meaning that connected them across the years. Since that first appearance in 2015, Catherine has worn the lover's knot tiara more than any other piece in the royal collection. 15 times and counting, across state banquets and diplomatic receptions and formal palace occasions that span nearly a decade of her public life. Each wearing has generated the same emotional response, the same flood of Diana comparisons, the same sense among those who watch the royal family closely that this particular choice carries a significance that goes well beyond what any other tiara in the collection could produce. Former royal butler Grant Harold, who spent years inside the palace and understands its emotional currents with the intimacy of long service, has spoken about Catherine's relationship with the tiara in terms that go directly to its deepest meaning. He has explained that Catherine's repeated choice of this piece reflects something genuinely heartfelt rather than strategically calculated, a desire to honor William's mother, to bring Diana's memory into the formal occasions where her presence would have been so natural and so right, and to tell William, without any words at all, that the woman he lost at 15 years old is still present in the life he is building. Catherine's return to the lover's knot tiara at the French state banquet at Windsor Castle in July 2025 was one of the most emotionally resonant royal moments in recent years. She had been away from full public duties for an extended period following her cancer diagnosis and treatment in 2024. Her return was watched with a kind of attention that only someone who has been genuinely missed can attract, and her choice of what to wear for that return was understood immediately to be deliberate and meaningful. The deep crimson gown, the lover's knot tiara gleaming above her, the evident health and composure she projected after a period of real and serious illness. It was a statement about survival and continuity, the kind of commitment to purpose that does not yield to personal adversity. It was also, as many observers noted, a statement about Diana. She was back. She was wearing the crown that connected her to the woman who had held her title before her. And the world responded with an outpouring of warmth that reflected how genuinely and how deeply Catherine has earned the public trust that Diana first showed was possible for a Princess of Wales to hold. Into this context of layered meaning and emotional weight came a question that has generated so much quiet discussion within royal circles. The question of whether Queen Camilla might, at some point, wear the Cambridge lover's knot tiara. The framing of this question as a formal request that was considered and refused involves a degree of simplification that royal reality always requires us to apply carefully. The palace does not operate through formal written requests for jewelry. The allocation of tiaras from the royal collection happens through the kind of informal consultation, personal expression of preference, and accumulated understanding of protocol and emotional appropriateness that characterizes much of how the monarchy actually functions beneath its formal surface. But the substance of the situation that Camilla's motivation for considering the lover's knot is not difficult to understand. She is queen consort. The royal jewelry collection is, in its most literal constitutional sense, under the authority of King Charles, and therefore accessible to her as his wife in a way that it was not when she was simply Duchess of Cornwall. She has worn pieces from the collection at significant events that she would not previously have been able to access, and in doing so, she has been building a visible relationship with the royal jewelry tradition that is appropriate to her new role. The lover's knot is one of the most magnificent and historically significant pieces in that collection. From a purely practical standpoint, it is exactly the kind of piece that a queen consort might reasonably wish to wear. From every other standpoint, it is precisely the piece that Camilla wearing would cause the most damage to public perception, to the careful relationship the monarchy has built with Diana's memory in the years since her death, and to the particular and hard-won equilibrium that Catherine's repeated wearing of the tiara has established in the public mind. The lover's knot has become, through the combined effect of Diana's decades of wearing it and Catherine's consistent honoring of that association, a piece so specifically and so powerfully connected to the role of Princess of Wales that Camilla wearing it would be read by the public, instantly and universally, as a provocation. Not necessarily an intended provocation. Not necessarily a malicious one. But a provocation nonetheless, touching the rawest nerve of the monarchy's complicated relationship with Diana's legacy and with the woman who is most intimately associated in the public mind with the circumstances of Diana's unhappiness. Princess Anne understands all of this with a particular clarity of someone who has watched every phase of this story from the inside. She was present for Diana's arrival into the royal family. She watched the marriage struggle and collapse. She was part of the institution that faced the public's devastating grief in the aftermath of Diana's death. She has observed the decades since during which the monarchy has slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely worked to acknowledge Diana's legacy rather than minimize it. And she has watched Catherine build, through 15 years of patient and genuine service, the kind of relationship with the public that Diana first showed was possible, and that the monarchy has come to understand is not a threat to its authority, but its most valuable asset. When the question of Camilla and the lover's knot tiara was raised in the informal way that such questions are raised inside royal circles, Princess Anne's position was reportedly clear and immediate. The tiara belonged, in the only sense that mattered for this conversation, to Diana's memory and to Catherine's stewardship of that memory in her role as Princess of Wales. It was not a piece that Camilla wearing would honor. It was a piece that Camilla wearing would damage, and the damage would extend far beyond the event at which she wore it. It would ripple through the public conversation about Diana and Camilla and the monarchy's handling of both women's legacies in a way that would take considerable time and considerable effort to repair. Princess Anne, who has never in her decades of royal service been willing to spend institutional capital on unnecessary fights or avoidable controversies, was not about to endorse a decision that created all of that damage in exchange for nothing of corresponding value. Her position, expressed with a directness that is her most consistent personal characteristic, was that the answer was no. And because Princess Anne's judgment on questions of royal tradition, institutional sensitivity, and the relationship between symbolic choices and public perception carries the authority of 75 years of experience inside the institution she has served without interruption, the answer remained no. Camilla's response to this outcome reflects something genuinely admirable about the way she has learned to navigate the impossible position she has always occupied within the royal family. She has built her own tiara story with the pieces available to her, and that story is a genuinely impressive one. The Greville tiara, the diamond honeycomb masterpiece that was bequeathed to the Queen Mother in 1942, and that has become as closely associated with Camilla as the lover's knot has become associated with Catherine, suits her in ways that are both aesthetic and symbolic. It is a magnificent piece with its own distinguished history, and Camilla has made it entirely her own through years of consistent and confident wearing. She has also demonstrated a willingness to explore less familiar pieces from the royal collection, wearing tiaras that had not been seen publicly for years and bringing them back into the light with the quiet authority of a woman who has earned her right to the collection she now holds access to. The Belgian sapphire tiara, the Delhi Durbar tiara, Queen Alexandra's Kokoshnik tiara with its more than 400 diamonds, and the Greville Emerald Kokoshnik tiara have all appeared on Camilla's head at significant state occasions in recent years, each one evidence of a woman who is actively and thoughtfully building her own relationship with the royal jewelry tradition, rather than reaching for the one piece whose emotional associations would overwhelm any positive impression she might make. She has, whether by calculated decision or by the kind of instinctive emotional intelligence that difficult experience teaches, chosen exactly the right approach. She has made herself at home in the collection without trespassing on the territory that carries Diana's name. To understand why Princess Anne's voice carries the weight it does in this particular conversation, you need to understand something about the woman herself that the official royal narrative sometimes obscures. Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, born in August 1950 as the second child and only daughter of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, has spent more than half a century doing something that the monarchy publicly celebrates but privately takes somewhat for granted. She has worked. She has worked with a consistency and a dedication and a total absence of self-promotion that makes her record as a working royal almost incomprehensible in its scale. By the counting of royal engagement trackers and palace record keepers, Princess Anne has for many years completed more official engagements in a single year than any other member of the royal family, including those who are considerably younger than her. She attends hundreds of events annually, supports hundreds of charitable organizations, and does so with a directness and a lack of theatrical performance that her most devoted admirers describe as the purest form of royal service, work done for its own sake rather than for the cameras. She has also been, throughout her decades of service, someone who understood the monarchy's relationship with its own history with a depth and a clarity that comes only from having been part of that history for a very long time. She watched her mother navigate the most complex challenges the modern monarchy has faced. She observed from the closest possible vantage point how the institution responded to Diana's impact, how it struggled to manage a woman whose public connection went so far beyond anything the palace machinery was designed to accommodate. She saw what happened when the monarchy misread public sentiment, how deeply and how lastingly the public could withdraw its affection from an institution it felt had behaved badly. And she learned from all of it. Princess Anne rarely speaks publicly about these things. When she does speak, people listen. And when she acts, the action tends to be decisive. Camilla's interest in the lover's Tiara was made known, and that Princess Anne's response to that interest was definitively negative, is something that those close to the palace have described in terms consistent enough to be taken seriously. The unspoken rules that govern royal jewelry represent something larger and more significant than a set of informal guidelines about who gets to borrow which diamonds for which occasions. They represent the monarchy's ongoing negotiation between its institutional continuity and the emotional reality of the people whose lives that institution has shaped, constrained, and sometimes broken. Diana changed what the public expected from the women who inhabit royal roles. She raised the emotional stakes of every symbolic choice, every gesture, every piece of jewelry worn at every formal occasion, by demonstrating that a Princess of Wales could connect with ordinary people at a depth of genuine human feeling that transformed the monarchy's relationship with its public. The institution has been working out how to honor that transformation ever since her death without losing the authority that its traditions and protocols are designed to protect. Catherine has found the answer that Diana herself pointed toward. Not by trying to be Diana, which would be both impossible and inappropriate, but by being genuinely herself in a role that Diana's example expanded and enriched. She wears the lover's tiara not as an imitation but as an homage, not as a performance of connection, but as a genuine expression of the feelings she has developed across 15 years of learning to inhabit a title that Diana made famous and that she has made her own. When she wore it on her return to public duties after cancer treatment, the message it carried was entirely Catherine's own, a message about resilience and continuity and the refusal to be defined by adversity. Diana's tiara was the vehicle for that message. Catherine was its author. Princess Anne's refusal to allow Camilla access to that vehicle is, at its deepest level, a refusal to allow an institution that has sometimes been careless with the most important things it was entrusted with to be careless again. Diana mattered. Her memory matters. The tiara that she made her own during 12 years of public life, in which she transformed the monarchy's relationship with its public matters. And the woman who has been given stewardship of that tiara, who wears it with genuine love for the man she married and genuine respect for the woman who held her title before her, matters in ways that the palace has been too slow, in too many instances, to fully acknowledge and protect. This time the protection came. It came quietly, as the most significant palace decisions always do. It came without press releases or formal announcements, or the theatrical drama that public audiences sometimes imagine governs life behind palace walls. It came in the form of a clear and final no from a woman whose decades of unimpeachable service to the crown have earned her the standing to say it, and whose understanding of what the monarchy owes to the people it has taken things from is deep enough and old enough to make that no means something beyond argument. The lover's knot tiara will continue to sit on Catherine's head at the great formal occasions of royal life. It will continue to connect the Princess of Wales of today with the Princess of Wales who made it famous. It will continue to carry Diana's memory into rooms where her presence was always the most vivid in any gathering. And it will do so because the people who understand the monarchy's most important obligations not only to tradition and protocol, but to truth and to the human beings those traditions are built around, made sure that it would.